Digital Marketing Revolution, winning strategies for the hyper-personalized future. In this episode, Kramer, the founder of Cooperative Computing, explores how digital enablement is transforming brand marketing in today's consumer-driven economy. Through real-world examples and practical insights, you'll learn how to navigate the rapidly changing marketing technology landscape while staying focused on what truly matters to your customers. I'm your co-host Anthony Perl, and whether you're just starting your digital journey or looking to accelerate your existing efforts, it's time to get enabled digitally.
Kramer, let's get into the brand and marketing space because it is in many respects the lead in a business, because if you can market something because there is a market for it and your brand is standing out, then everything else is going to flow through in the business. Because let's face it, if you market it and it generates leads, which leads to sales, you're going to work out ways to fulfill that and continue to fulfill that and work with your clients on an ongoing basis. So in terms of the digital enablement space, where do you begin with brand and marketing?
I think there's two key elements here, right? And remember, we said start with the customer in mind. The customer is shifting from, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back to the journey that you and I, right? I'm 60 some years old. And so I'm going to use my age group. I got to watch all the way from, if you wanted to go see it, you could get a catalog, and then you walked into the store, you got a chance to feel it and touch it and do the things you wanted to do with it. Some things mattered. If I bought socks, I bought the same socks from the same people all the time until suddenly there was another socks producer that had the same quality at less price. So if we talk about branding and marketing and how to digitally enable that, and what do we think about in that circle, in that construct, there's two things you really have to start to think about. Where are my ideal buyers? Let's just call them that for a minute, because that's going to shift a little bit, because we're going to see digital buyers show up for consumers. That's going to happen in the future. So where are my ideal buyers, and where do those ideal buyers go to do buy selection? The digital tools that let you watch and inherit the data, that first party data that understands it, you've got to really understand that super fast, because that is shifting right out from under people every day. And, people say, oh, it's the influencer market inside, TikTok and blah, 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 blah. Influencers, I'm going to call that gang following. So I've got someone I love, Cardi B, and Cardi B is going to go out and promote something, and therefore I'm going to buy something that Cardi B is buying. And there's that gang followership is going to show up. But where does that gang followership actually represent, and how does it show up to let me be a part of that process in that cycle? So you've got to start to digitally automate that front end. There's a set of tools. There's 2 or 3 of them that are extremely effective that help you understand what that digital space looks like and how to get inside that digital space to understand where your ideal buyer is at. So you've got to start with understanding, where is my ideal buyer at? I'm making an assumption you've already figured out market fit. So I'm going to take that out of the equation. But you've got to start with, where do I go after my ideal customer? Where do I find that ideal customer? What are the digital tools that enable me to do that? 2 things I've got to do with that. 1, I've got to let them know my brand exists. I've got to let them know that brand exists to them in a way that's meaningful to them. I may have an ideal customer base that buys because they're emotionally attached to something. Coca-Cola, Colt 45, yada, yada, yada. The buyer is attached to some brand because of some idealism they have, right? There's a buyer that wants to buy that product because it fits inside their economic value stream. It does what it needs to do repeatedly. When my wife buys, she doesn't really care about the brand much until the brand has created a trust in her that when she uses that brand, she gets an outcome. Clothing detergent's a big thing. Clothing detergent either works or it doesn't, and it may be a perception, but she tests it. And when she gets the one that she wants, knowing how to fit inside that buyer persona and get to that buyer persona. Now, those are all things that typical marketing people would tell you. So this is nothing new. What is digital enablement? Digital enablement starts to reach out to those people and start to ask them and start to engage them in a meaningful way around the things that you want to do and how you want to do them. We're going to have to shift our branding processes to customer engagement at a whole different level in the future. If we don't, we're going to lose out because somebody else is going to do it. So that's the first place in branding and marketing to do it. I'm going to call that the ability to actually get out to a client, talk to that client in a meaningful fashion about what it is that you have and do, get them to participate in that. And there's some pretty novel ideas that are starting to show up about how you do that. The second thing in that space around marketing then is to make sure that from that contact on getting them into your funnel for a lead, because they look at it and they're like, that's freaking amazing. I would love 2 of those and 3 of those to put in my house and yada, yada, yada. The next thing you have to do then is understand, how do they want to engage the distribution of that? How do they want to get that acquired and brought into their home? So people trust Amazon because the delivery's there, the method for how they get it's there. Amazon every day is worrying about new ways to make sure that the goods they put on your doorstep, they're secure. They're worrying about all this stuff, right? So you may want to take that through an Amazon fulfillment process, or you may want to go direct to them and have them fulfill it. So you've got to understand, 1, how do you engage them to make certain that they're the buyer that wants what you have? 2, how do you make sure you understand the fulfillment strategy during that branding and marketing activity to get them into the next stage, which is, okay, now they're ready to buy. So those are the 2 areas you got to focus on right quick and the marketing side.
I think one of the interesting areas about the marketing space in particular is it seems to be very driven by the latest and greatest. There are many, many tools coming out on a daily basis almost in that space. And it's hard not to be led by the shiny new object. And so knowing where to actually start and working out what are the technologies that you actually need to go in those different areas and sticking to those things as well, because I think that's the hard part is how long do you stick with something versus how quickly do you have to move to something new, because something that wasn't available today is available now. And is it better? Is it worthwhile? How do you understand and navigate through that?
And I think what you're saying is not new on the product set that you're selling, but new on how do I engage that customer in that marketing activity? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's 2 key concepts that are a critical core for what we do. A lot of people think I go through a process and I select my tools and I'm done. No, the process never ends. And one of the services that we offer to our clients, we're testing, evaluating, and utilizing thousands of tools on a daily basis across all 5 of these areas. Okay. And so one of the things we offer as a service is the ability for us to engage you. And I'm not talking about, Gartner will tell you the same thing, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you've got to have someone that's alongside the Sherpa route with you to help you understand these are the key things that are actually showing up. Now, there's some pretty good news articles and blogs that are very focused on marketing that help you get up-to-date information, but it's very broad. It's not relevant necessarily for the construct that you're actually working against. So what you have to do to make certain that new shiny thing doesn't get you into the spot that is you're switching every 4 months and you didn't give it a chance to work is this construct that we have that says you must really well understand what you want it to do. And that what you want it to do takes a little bit of time. We have an engagement process with our customers and they're like, well, can I pay you a couple $100 for an hour? You can, but that's not what's going to get you there. What you really want to understand is how to functionally define what you want. Let us help you do that. Then once we help you do that, you can do that over and over again, and you may use a little bit of our service, but let us help you do that. Why? The definition of what you want something to do is so critical to what you're selecting in the tools that you want. And we've got this great technology out there that lets us actually ask it, if you get a good definition about what you want, where to go find those. Now, we've written some capability and some tools ourselves to help you with this, what we call continuous selection of next generation. Because let's say you want your branding tools to tell people across the US and Northern Europe. You want to hit Italy and Spain, and you want to hit France. And you want to hit those two markets and put your brand out there for what it is that you want. And let's say what you have is an eco-friendly product that is in the body cleansing space. And so what you tell your US market, because we don't care as much as they do in the European markets, and what you tell your European market are two different things.
Yeah.
And so the messaging has to be accurate. It's got to be relevant. It's got to be rapid. It's got to get to the right people in the right spaces. What do those right spaces look like? Well, we think Instagram is the center of everything. TikTok is the next center of everything. Those are not as popular in most European markets. They have a whole different set of tools and technologies that they're using. So as you take this space about what do I have today, what works, what do I have tomorrow, what works, what do I have after that, what works, understand what you want it to do so that you're picking critical tools in a way that is useful to migrate from one to the other, and think about what does that look like when it impacts your customer. How do they get it today? How do they get it tomorrow? If your customer is living in TikTok and Instagram, and that's where they're actually seeing things that help them make decisions, then you've got to figure out how to live there and get your relevant content into the stream without, spending a bunch of money on paid advertising. If you're living in the European equivalents of those, right, L'Avance and some of the other tools that are operating over there, you've got to figure out how to get in them. You don't want to be a person who has to do it one way in one, another way in another. You want to get your messaging, and you want to let the systems that you're deploying deploy it out to those appropriately. And you want to understand, I'm getting this today because this is what I want. I need this in the future, and my functional requirements have changed. So I understand what I need to ask for, so the right tool gets either layered on top of it or actually augments what I have or replaces what I have. Digital enablement isn't about rip it out and stick in a new one. It's making sure you've got a continuous evolution of what you're doing to get to the outcomes that you seek.
It's interesting when you talk about all of those things, because I think, the starting point, the starting reference that you had there about working out what you want to do, the distraction that happens is, well, here's the tool that does this, but also it does this, 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 and this. And now you start thinking, well, maybe I should do this, 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 and this. And you get taken away from where it is that you want to be. So there's a certain amount of discipline that needs to be held in these areas, isn't there?
Yes. And that focus and discipline, I read an article yesterday. I read these scientific articles. They're starting to do studies on what is AI doing to us as we start to evolve how we use it. One of the big concerns is that I'm allowing AI then to think for me and make decisions for me and start to calculate outcomes for me. Because it's smarter than me, I should just go ahead and give into it, right? If I ask my dad should I buy the truck or not buy the truck, he's been around a lot longer and he's going to give me some advice, and I might take that advice. Well, I've got this AI dad that I could go ask the same thing for. So the distraction factor and how we operate is quite often the main thing that we've got to focus on. It's what we do a lot of in our digital enablement practice, is helping you understand what you really want to do, get that locked and loaded, make sure you understand the timeframes to do it, that you're going to get the outcome you want before you move on to the next thing. The number one problem when people say, I want to implement AI, is they have no idea what problem they're trying to fix. And so
yeah, I was going to say that is a really interesting statement, that they don't what they're trying, and they're just trying to plug it in, particularly in the brand and marketing space, because when it comes to communication, they just go, well, there's AI, so we'll produce some content and we'll use the AI to produce some content, but they're not really sure what they're producing it about, and they're not even using their own content to start it off with. So what they're producing is material that is from anywhere that could have been made up about things that may or may not be related to who their audience is.
Yeah, 100%. And there are elegant tools that let me engage an audience and bring them in to actually get their opinion on things that I'm doing feed that back. As consumers, our time is super valuable. We don't mind inputting to something though that we want. And so if someone was to ask my wife about, the detergent she's using and is she getting the outcome she wants, she might spend 10 seconds looking at that thing. But if someone was to say, hey, we've got this solution for 6-year-old grandchildren who are randomly running through the front yard and getting grass stains and oil and yada, yada, what is the problem that she's got to deal with? She's going to engage in that and take a look at it and interact with that and spend some time with that. So that consumer understanding is not going to get over. AI is not going to win that battle for you. It just isn't going to try to understand all of those characteristics that you understand. So you've got to know what you're asking it to do. To your point, stay very focused on making certain it can do that and gets the outcome it wants. Utilize it properly to get that outcome. Because a lot of people want to fiddle with the knobs. This red knob does this, let's tweak that a little bit. And you don't really have a quantitative analysis of, did the blue knob do what you wanted it to do or not? And so in that marketing space, focusing on your customer and understanding what it is they want, but then understanding what you want the tools to do for you is super critical.
I think just to finish off the concept around marketing is that we're being led in a marketing sense to the idea that things are very specifically targeting us. We feel that Google and Siri and all of those things are listening into us, and suddenly we get very targeted ads. Today we're talking about trucks, so suddenly there are truck ads that appear on this. And by the way, that's quite a fascinating one. I was watching a show with my wife that's about a farm, and we don't live on a farm. But all of a sudden, we must have been talking about it, and miraculously, I'm starting to get ads for tractors appearing out of nowhere in my feed. So that was quite amusing. But we're used to that kind of very personalized stuff, which puts a lot of pressure on business to be able to very target very specifically and talk to their audience in a very specific manner, and get them to understand that they're talking to an individual, even though they're talking to a mass. They're having to talk to an individual.
Yes. And that the ability to get to the individual level and do so in a sophisticated fashion, that is a new construct that has not been doable in the past as elegantly as you can with the technology of today. And so that's a huge shift, because before we've had to pay for advertising in blocks of, let's go blast it out and see who responded. The new technologies and the opportunity to actually deal with those technologies, the ability for us to actually target in a elegant fashion to the personal level is drastically going to shift. You know what? You and I, let me talk about myself. I want certain ads. There's certain ads I really do want. And I've begged, I'm doing everything I can do to get those ads. And those ads show up sometimes and sometimes they don't. For example, there are things that we do around the house that I desperately want to do in a better way. This is really simple. I'm going to take measuring stuff. Okay. I don't like to use this measuring thing. And there's a measure app that comes on my mobile phone, and I've downloaded some measure apps. All of them are just junk. They're not quality, and there's got to be a way to fix that. So I've waved my arms and said, can I get an ad for that thing? Because I bet there's some schmuck somewhere that built one of those things that works really, really well. And if he knew I was here, I got probably 50 friends that want that same thing. Our ability to opt into what we want and how we want to actually achieve getting that advertised to us is going to increase 1,000-fold in the future. And the ability for us as marketers to understand how to adopt to that. It's a different way of thinking, because, I've got a mathematical equation. If I send this out to my audience and I do 10,000 of them, out of that 10,000, some percentage are going to respond. Out of the ones that respond, they're going to do this, and then they're going to do this. And that's the whole funnel magic. And, just follow the funnel magic. That funnel magic is going to be different in the future. And so to your point about how do we engage that customer during that branding experience to say, I've got what you want. And remember the second thing, I get what I want when I want it at the value I want it. I've got to be able to express those in an intelligent enough fashion to understand how to get it down the pipe with the tools that are going to be hyper-personalized.
And by the way, podcasting is one of those great opportunities where, we're having a conversation with each other, but at the end of the day, the person listening in and hello to you is we're targeting you. We're talking to you. That's why you're still listening in. And it's one of those great tools where you can be very authentic in your marketing and start that journey on. So, that's part of the reason why we're here, and enabling people to, go down a similar path.
100%.
And that's all for this episode of Get Enabled Digitally with Kramer from Cooperative Computing. If you found value in today's conversation about digital enablement, please subscribe and share with colleagues navigating their own transformation journey. For more insights on accelerating into the automated economy, check our show notes for resources and contact information. This show has been produced by podcastdoneforyou.online. I'm Anthony Perl, and until next time, keep moving forward to get enabled digitally.